Welcome to I Said What I Said. I'm Brad Wakai. That's Tyson Gentry. Final preview of the Power Four conferences on college football. Tyson, it's the Big Ten because two-time repeat national champions, Ohio State, Penn State, or Ohio State, Michigan. Can Penn State maybe get in there and make it three? I got the hat on. I'm hoping so. We'll dive into everything. How we're going to do it if this is your first time jumping in. Here's how we've been doing the previews. If you haven't listened to the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, go listen to those. Those are in your feed. But we're going to kind of lead in with the favorites, talk about who can win the conference, and we're going to go alphabetically each team and break them down. And we'll give out some of our picks of Money Makin Time at the end, some win total action on there. Tyson, I know, I kind of took a couple pot shots in the SEC one, but are you feeling some heat as the SEC guy for Big Ten taking over?
No, because I'm not a conference guy. And I think that's the weirdest thing in the whole world. When they get together and they chant SEC, and then the Big Ten guys are just as bad because they want to be able to do that so badly, and they feel like they're on the verge, and it's just losers fighting with each other. I like LSU. I don't like Georgia. I hate Florida. I don't like Ole Miss. You don't want to see Ohio State win another football game. The whole conference thing can get out of my face.
No, I know it's insane. I had some Penn State people, and I had to shout them down to well, Ohio State won. At least this is good for the Big Ten. I'm like, the Big Ten doesn't care about Penn State or doesn't care about whoever. You think Ohio State's not going to use that against recruiting against Penn State? You're out of your mind.
Yeah,
we wanted them to lose.
The conference makes more money. I don't care. I don't work for the conference.
Yeah, is that coming back into my pocket? No, absolutely not. But as we say that, Tyson, it's really the big three. Ohio State's the favorite, plus 185, according to FanDuel's odds, as we're recording this. Penn State, plus 240. Oregon, plus 330. And then Michigan, plus 1,100. USC, plus 1,900. Do you buy into it? It's really just a three-horse race?
I think it's probably closer to two. To be honest, I'm not – Oregon's got to win it to win it. That's kind of where I'm at right now. I love Dan Lanning. I love the Oregon program, but last year the end left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, I think. And so that's where I'm at. But Oregon's going to be really good, and they have really good players, and they definitely have a chance to win the conference. But Ohio State is so good, and Penn State is going to be so good. All three of these teams are sitting at 10.5 for their win totals for a reason. It's just the other, really the one. I can't. Sorry, brother, but the Penn State's got to win it too.
Oh, for sure. And I think, that's the thing, because Oregon immediately walks into the conference last year and they win the freaking league. And it's oh, God, is Oregon just a new Ohio State, yada, yada. Penn State was there. Penn State had a chance. They were in the title game first time since 2017 when they won. And so, but I'm with you too. I mean, they gotta win. They had an opportunity to go to the national championship. I did a whole rant, my reaction on that. So that's not what this is about. We're moving forward. We're on to Cincinnati. We're on to 2025 as we go full Bill Belichick. But no, I mean, I will say this. We'll dive into it more specifically with Ohio State. I think it's insane, and maybe this is just a respect factor the bookmakers have to give. It's insane that they're the favorite if we're looking at who they lost compared to who's coming back, Tyson. I mean, we'll dive into a little bit more. Maybe that's just my hatred coming through, but I do think that's a little ridiculous.
Well, it's probably respect, but it's so loaded. The roster is so loaded, and it's Ohio State, dude. They turn and burn these guys through, and I think it's those three. If Bryce Underwood is awesome, how cool would that be? If Michigan rears ahead, I'm not cheering for USC to win the conference. I like it a little bit more old school. Last year, Texas shows up, they win. Oregon shows up, they win. It was what is going on? College football shifted, and then the playoffs happened, and the teams are we're from these conferences. We're getting a little bit of get back on these other ones, but the Big Ten is going to be really fun, dude. They're the craziest dark horse playoff candidates coming out of this conference from people, and I'm not sure I'm there on any of them.
I'm not sure either. And let's dive into one that a lot of people are highlighting now as we dive into these specific teams, and that's Illinois. They're coming off a 10-3 season. They went 6-3 in conference. Brett Bielema, this is his fifth season here. 28-22 is his overall record. I think this is the best team that he's going to have since he's arrived on campus, just based on who's returning. Luke Altmaier being back at quarterback is huge. 2,700 yards last year, 61% completion percentage, 22 touchdowns, 6 picks, but super clutch on third downs, late game stuff. Altmaier was extremely clutch. And Tyson, 66.8% of their offensive yards are back, which is 21st in the country. 72.9% of their tackles are back, which is 4th in the country. And 103 offensive line starts are back, 27th in the country.
All
10
5
offensive
starters.
returning starters, 9 returning defensive starters. This is a loaded roster for Brett Bielema.
All 5 offensive linemen. Like, that is so rare, and it's Brett Bielema. Like, it's amazing. This is how it worked out. I'm a little concerned that, like, no Pat Bryant, no Franklin on the outside, and how that's going to look for replacing the targets, because Luke Altmaier was awesome in those spots for sure. But, like, it's 230 yards a game. You're going to need more than that if you want to be Illinois to win enough games to get into the Big Ten, to make the playoff, because that's kind of where people are at. But this defense is going to be really good, and that's kind of the crux of this whole thing. Maybe Illinois' defense is good enough to put them into that top 3.
And I think that's what they're hoping for, right? Like, as we're figuring out who can be the next guys on the outside, because it's Hank Beatty and Colin Dixon, they only had 38 receptions among them last year. And you averaged between them just under 600 yards a game, or for the season, excuse me, but 1 touchdown apiece. Now, those guys have to step into a starring role. That's tough if we don't necessarily know it. And then you lose your starting running back in McCray. So now you're relying on Caden Fegan and Aiden Laurie. Again, less than 1,000 yards with the 2 of them combined. So there is a lot of positives coming into the season for Illinois, Tyson, but I think there's a lot of question marks, at least more than the people who say Illinois is the dark horse and people want to admit.
No, I'm still riding with the guys next up in the alphabet.
Let me go through the schedule here, because I do think it's funny. 56 toughest schedule according to Phil Steele. Let's just run through this. This is funny because we just recorded SEC. So if you're listening to this backwards, awesome. It's just going to be hilarious. Host Western Illinois, at Duke, host Western Michigan, at Indiana, host USC for your homecoming game, at Purdue. Purdue's off a bye, not that it matters. Host Ohio State, which is interesting. Bye. At Washington, host Rutgers. Bye. Host Maryland, at Wisconsin, host Northwestern. Not necessarily a gauntlet.
Yeah, I don't think they're losing sleep like once.
Let's get into Indiana. My brother's alma mater. What a fantastic debut season for our boy Kirk Sidnetti, who is coming over from James Madison, 11-2 first season, 8-1 in conference. They make the college football playoff. What are you going to do for an encore? Oh, Curtis Rourke was so good for us. Let's go get Fernando Mendoza. Transferred in from Cal. 3,000 yards last year, 69% completion percentage, 16 tuds, 6 picks, more weapons in this offense, an offense that's suited to him. You get Roman Higbee transferred in from Maryland at the running back position, Tyson, and both leading receivers are back. This is an exciting Indiana team once again.
Yeah, and I think Mendoza fits awesome. I like, it's not going to be the same thing as Curtis Rourke, but like from a personality standpoint, when you're watching this kid at Cal and he's taking off in the pocket, he's getting his brains beat in against Miami, and he just keeps showing up during that game. And Cal ultimately loses that football game due to shenanigans that are, we're not going to talk about. But I think like that personality with the way that Kurt Cignetti coaches his football team, the way they are, and this defense is really good too. That's a theme of this conference. But they go out and, okay, we need to replace some guys on the offensive line. Let's just go get a dude from Notre Dame. Let's just go, this is not the Indiana of old. Like, these are not guys that would have shown up 3 years ago.
No, and this is where we talk about NIL. We talk about some of the rev share that's coming in. That's going to benefit teams like Indiana, like Illinois, like in these big conferences to at least raise the floor. Because all of a sudden, like before, it was the athletic department's like, well, we're really a basketball school. We'll kind of give the scraps to the football program. But now, you're allocating the rev share stuff from the TV conferences, from whatever's happening, and however it's being allocated to like, okay, well, we have a huge chunk of this pot that we can give to our football program. So that kid that was like, well, I'm not going to play at Notre Dame, instead of him going down south or something because they have the cash, like Indiana's like, well, why don't you stay in this area? We'll give you some money too. Stay in the Northwest, stay in the Midwest, yada, yada, and come play for Indiana. Play for a good coach. Play for a program that's on the up and up, and that's where we're at. Tyson, 21.4% of their offensive yards are back, which is 104th, but a lot of that has to do with the departing running backs. A lot of that has to do with the departing quarterback. I'm with you. I think Mendoza is a huge step here. These are the two biggest things for me, or a good fit, I should say, for Mendoza. 50.6% of their tackles are back, which is 50th in the country. 95 offensive line starts are back, which is 32nd. 9 returning offensive starters, including some transfer stuff, and 7 returning defensive starters. They have the 58th toughest schedule here, which I think is awesome. People are going to be complaining about it, but if you're Indiana, you just have to win. That's all you got to do here, and this is a huge bone for them.
Yeah, and like of those defensive guys, it's not just any defensive guys come back. It's Fisher, Pons, Kamara. Like these are 3 of the best guys in the country at what they do. On a defense allowed like 15 points a game.
Iowa, another transfer quarterback, Mark Gronowski, coming in from South Dakota State. I'll let Tyson talk about a little bit more because he's an FCS guy, but I do think it's interesting that coming off an 8-5 season, 6-3 in conference, Kirk Ferentz's 27th season is tapping into yet another guy who's supposed to be the answer here. We're just still archaic on offense. Everybody's talking about, Gronowski's going to do stuff the Big Ten's never seen. What do you know about this kid?
He just wins a ton of football games. And you can read off his stats and you're not going to be impressed. You're going to, it's the 230 yards a game. 23 touchdowns. He uses his legs really well. He is so much better than anybody they've had because he does win football games. Like he's gonna beat somebody this year, and people are gonna be mad. Mark Gronowski is the most college football quarterback in college football. Like this is the guy who you're gonna always want a little bit more from throwing the football, but he's gonna be just good enough to beat your favorite team. And then when he takes off, he's gonna get caught sometimes, but he's also gonna run over your linebacker or juke out a guy in the secondary. This dude just wins, and he's not going to do things the Big Ten has never seen. But there are going to be moments where you go, that doesn't feel like Iowa.
Yeah, and that'll be the most interesting thing, Tyson, because I'm looking at stuff here. 38.1% of their offensive yards are back, which is 70th. 40.6% of their tackles are back, which is 79th. And maybe even more shockingly, only 85 offensive line starts are back, which is 45th. It just feels like Iowa has not been able to build up those freak shows. It's like, where are these guys coming from in the Midwest? These guys are insane, like corn-fed athletes are going to the NFL. We just haven't had that from Iowa in a while.
They're at South Dakota State, North Dakota State. Those are the guys that are going pro.
That's a good point, too.
I'm just kidding, but like it is happening.
Oh, for sure. And you've highlighted, too, because, again, you're the FCS guy. We don't necessarily talk a ton about that, but you're always tipping me off like, hey, this is somebody that kind of put on your radar as we get into draft season. And yeah, they've had a high hit rate. 26 toughest schedule here for Iowa. And you kind of alluded to it, Tyson. It's like, I might be interested in them, but they play everybody. And I kind of made a joke before we hopped on here. They were benefiting from playing in the West Conference or the West Division for so long. We get rid of the conferences. We knew those teams are going to be faced with some challenges they haven't before, and I think that's happened for Iowa. They open up with a home game against Albany. Then you go right into a rivalry game at Iowa State. Home Massachusetts, not anything crazy there. At Rutgers, home Indiana, which is big for your homecoming game. You get a bye. At Wisconsin, host Penn State, host Minnesota, bye. Host Oregon off of their bye. At USC, host Michigan State, at Nebraska on a Friday night game.
Yeah.
There's some tough games and a tough stretch in there for sure.
I mean, it's Iowa. We're gonna look up and they're gonna be at 7 wins or 8 wins. We're gonna go, yeah, that checks out. Like that. The schedule is hard. I said they played everybody and they play a lot of these guys on the road, but they're in the mix to win 8 games.
Maryland, Mike Locksley is entering his 7th season, coming off a 4-8 record, 1-8 in conference. Tyson, there are just so many questions about Locksley. What's going on here?
You were so in.
I was, and they just had so many people back, and I was expecting a big jump. And it's just tough, when you're Maryland and you kind of run into some injuries or just things don't break your way. It's hard to get out of the funk of like, oh God, here we go again for Maryland. So Tyson, this is kind of where they're at. There is a lot now that they have the NIL, now that they have rev share stuff coming. There's a bunch of talent in that DMV area. A lot of it's going to Penn State. They're trying to get people to stay home.
Malik Washington
they were able to do that. I think he's going to be the starter this year as a freshman. He was somebody that Penn State was going after for a while that kind of soured a little bit on the recruiting trail. He decides to stay home with Maryland. I think that Locksley is kind of selling this thing as, hey, give me another year with Malik Washington, and that's going to be his pitch. I don't know if he's going to be able to convince the people in charge that that's going to be the case.
I mean, it's going to be tough with the defense that allows 35 points a game. Like they had one win in conference. It was USC, and we all made fun of USC for losing that football game. And that's just not where we thought Maryland was going to be last year. They got Justin Martin in the portal, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he might play too. They're going to be at the bottom of the Big Ten.
I think so too. And listen, 12.8% of their offensive yards are back, which is 124th. 37.7% are tackles back, 85th. 45 offensive line starts back, that's 89th. It's a reset in a year that Loxley cannot afford to have a reset. Now, is he going to be able to do enough to convince the decision makers to let him have another year so that the talented 2026 class can come in, or is it going to be a free fall? I'm leaning towards the latter, but Tyson, the one thing that helps him out was the 46th toughest schedule in the country, according to Phil Steele. They start off great. Host FAU, host Northern Illinois, host Towson. They got to go to Wisconsin, but then you get a bye and go home against Washington, home against Nebraska, at UCLA, into a bye, which I think helps a ton there. Host Indiana, but then you go at Rutgers, at Illinois, who's off a bye, host Michigan, at Michigan State. If you're going to make some hay, you got to do it early.
Yeah, I don't even know if it starts off great. Like Northern Illinois right away, like that, they should be fine, but we don't know.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Michigan. Whoo-wee. Talented freshman, all right. Tyson might be a little jaded because Bryce Underwood got paid the bag. He decommits from LSU. He's coming into Ann Arbor. This is Sharon Moore's second season. They went 8-5 last year, 5-4 in conference. But most importantly for Michigan, they beat Ohio State yet again. It was insane. I don't know how they did it. This entire setup is interesting for me. I'll let you give your analysis here on Michigan. I'll dive into some of the stuff. But Michigan, I'm having a hard time getting a read on them.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to an 18-year-old kid, and that's unfortunate. It comes down McCollum transfers from Indiana. That's like the prize, I think, for them at the wide receiver core. Or McCauley, excuse me.
McCauley, yep.
Yeah, and then they have like Marshall and Haynes. They're going to have an awesome running back duo again, and that helps. We know they're going to play defense. They lost like a ton of guys, but they're kind of in that spot right now where it's like, oh, there's dudes coming back from injury and they're just replacing with NFL level talent. So I'm not super concerned about that. $10 million, that's a hefty investment, and he's not going to have to win games by himself, Bryce Underwood, but it's just a lot to ask in the Big Ten of a freshman quarterback in this place, in this scheme with these guys around him.
I'm curious because Sherrod Moore is the offensive guy. Is he going to elevate the offense to another level? Mikey Keene also transferred in from Fresno State. It seems strange that he's going to transfer in. Now, of course, I mean, it's not bad to end your college career at Michigan. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not going to be too many people complaining about that. But is he really going to ride the pine for the entire season behind this kid? And Bryce Underwood could be great. I mean, people are giving Cam Newton comps just based on body size and his ability to do dual threat things. Now, let's pump the brakes a little bit on that. But he looks, for all intents and purposes, super special. But Tyson, 37% of the offensive yards are back, which is 71st. 58.2% of the tackles are back, even with those guys that have left. It's 21st, so that's good based on a defense that's strong. 36 offensive line starts are back, which is 109th. Now, is Michigan fall into that category on the offensive line? Well, they're replacing the high-end talent. I have some questions about that. Like, I feel like Michigan for a long time, and especially under Harbaugh, it was like, oh, yeah, they're just replacing blue chipper with blue chipper. Based on the recruiting stuff, yeah, they've gotten some good guys in there, but I don't know if there's the same level of talent here, which is what I'm curious about with Sherrod Moore going forward. He's been a good recruiter, but is that still the Harbaugh bump? What does this look like when we're 4 years removed? And I think that's the biggest question mark I have.
Oh, let's ask that question when Bryce Underwood is 20 years old.
54th toughest schedule is going to help them out a ton. I mean, host New Mexico to start, at Oklahoma, which is a huge game. You come back and host Central Michigan. You go at Nebraska, bye. Host Wisconsin, who's off a bye, but it's also the homecoming here for Michigan. At USC, who's off a bye, which is interesting. Host Washington, at Michigan State. Host Purdue, bye. At Northwestern, at Maryland. Home against Ohio State to close the season.
They might win like 9 games.
I think
he's good.
That's what I'm saying. He's got to be good, but man, there is.
If he's good, they might make the playoff. That's not a tough spot to be for Michigan.
No, Michigan State. Jonathan Smith, second year here. They went 5-7 last year, 3-6 in conference. It's going to be Aiden Childs again. And you want to talk about erratic. I mean, he would have times it was like, this is special. But 2,400 yards, 59% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, 11 picks. I mean, Tyson, how many times it was like, oh, my God, Michigan State is driving. They're going to go in the score. It's going to be a completely different game. Mistake from Childs, and they could never recover.
Like every time it felt like it was. But the flip side is if that stops happening, Michigan State is like Indiana last season.
Right. And I super talented, and it feels like Childs is getting left behind in the conversation of some of these super talented quarterbacks. But Tyson, 59% offensive yards returned, which is 39th. 41.3% of the tackles returned, 76th. 61 offensive line starts are back, which is 71st. That's the biggest concern I have is the offensive line. Like we know, like when there's coaching or coordinator changes, some people leave, some people go, and when you have a staple like D'Antoni who leaves, or D'Antonio, that is going to change a lot of things. Jonathan Smith comes in, he's going to need time to build this thing back up. It's tough in year two with a talented quarterback. Yeah, he's got another year of eligibility. He might use it, but I don't know if we're going to see that second year jump like many were expecting.
Well, Jonathan Smith was like 9-22 in his first 3 seasons at Oregon State, and then they got that thing rolling. And so 5-7 in the debut is not so bad. It's not an overnight process. This guy's got to do his own thing. But those Oregon State teams were completely different. Seasons 4 through 6, and they were 1 through 3.
31st toughest schedule according to Phil Steele. But I do want to ask you, Elijah Tolliver from Sac State, is he going to be able to compete at this level?
Probably. Yeah, okay. I think he can play. Yeah, they don't come up for nothing, Brad. Like none of these guys come up and don't play. That's a general rule of thumb you can apply to anything. Like Jared Verse when he was at Albany and had like 16 and a half sacks, and then it was reports at camp and it was like this Jared Verse guy is pretty good. And then you get it with the linebacker from North Dakota State goes to LSU. Any offensive lineman is all of a sudden out here mauling people. When coaches go down and grab guys, they're coming up to play.
That's a good point. That is a good point. Let's get into Minnesota. It's Tyson's guy, PJ Fleck, continues to row the boat here. 9th season, 58-39 record since he's arrived. 8-5 last year, 5-4 in conference. This was an interesting year because there were times in Minnesota, they almost took Penn State out, took them right on the ropes. You got Drake Lindsay as your quarterback who's a redshirt freshman. At least that's the projected starter right now. He's coming off a guy in Hosmer who at least had experience, could throw the rock around. That concerns me, but you get Darius Taylor back, AJ Turner back. It's just going to be a run-heavy offense, just not explosive through the air. That's what I'm leaning towards. What's your read on Minnesota?
I don't want PJ Fleck to win another football game. What he was saying made me so upset, but it was good. It's been like at Minnesota, it's good, and like 3 or 4 years, he was 8 wins. Are they going to win 10 games? No. Like that's where I'm at with Minnesota. And look, I think it's exciting and it's fun. But Brosmer left some big shoes. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of the scary part.
For sure. And 28.2% of their offensive yards are back, which is 84th in the country. 54.6% of their tackles are back, which is 41st. 80 offensive line starts are back, which is 51st. So that's at least a positive. Here's the biggest thing, 52nd toughest schedule. Minnesota kind of skating by a little bit. You open with Buffalo. You open with Northwestern State right after that. At Cal, who we think could be a disaster. Then the bye. So the West Coast trip doesn't even matter. You host Rutgers at Ohio State. That's tough. But then you come back and host Purdue for your homecoming. Host Nebraska. At Iowa. Host Michigan State. Get a bye. Finish with at Oregon. At Northwestern. Host Wisconsin. So yes, there's some big names there. We're not quite sure how some of those big names are going to perform this year. And we've seen PJ Fleck be able to compete with some of the best and biggest programs in this conference too. Yeah,
he said they need to be delusional. And that's not a worse and that's not a bad headspace to be in. But I don't think it's going to go great.
Nebraska, year 3 of Matt Rule, year 2 of Dylan Raiola, who was a 5-star quarterback. People seem to be off him a little bit, Tyson. I thought there was a lot of good that we saw from Raiola. Now, this needs to be a big bump for Matt Rule because he's 12-13 since he's arrived. They went 7-6 last year, 3-6 in conference. Dana Holgerson, the offensive coordinator, now officially coming into the second season, had the offseason to kind of implement everything. Can they get Dylan Raiola more on platform, or less thinking he's Patrick Mahomes and like, dude, throw the football and we'll figure out the Pat stuff later. That's what we're looking for on that aspect. Nebraska, we all talk about the Matt Rule bump. Might be spoiling something here, but it feels like that's going to come for him this season.
Are you going top 25?
I think they'll get ranked at some point. Yes.
Are they finishing the season top 25?
If they don't, I would say that's a disappointment.
Okay. I mean, that's a fair expectation. I can't give Indiana credit for grabbing a guy out of the portal from Notre Dame without saying Nebraska grabbed an offensive line from Notre Dame and an offensive line from Alabama. They saw what Cignetti did, and they said, we need help too. Raiola's getting killed on the same stunt twice in a row, essentially, against Illinois to end the game. If he's good, I think it'd be fun. People are just out on him because it's kind of weird. The number thing, the arm, like it's
a little strange.
It's the haircut. It's a lot, to be impersonating Patrick Mahomes out here. Defensive coordinator, at least for Florida State, 4 starters back, all in the secondary. Like that'll be something to monitor. And then I just have this feeling the Nebraska season is going to come down to a lot of field goals.
Probably, and their special teams were so awful last year, Tyson. So if you're even average, it's like, oh my God, we could win a few more of these games. Here's what stands out to me. You mentioned the offensive line transfer they have coming in. 131 offensive line starts are going to be in
Spindler and Pritchett,
which is 10th in the country. And based on what we saw from that unit last year, you got to at least be like, thank God we have some experience. Like, holy smokes, that was bad. 10 returning offensive starters, 61.3% of their offensive yards are back, which is 30th in the country. That's huge. I'm curious, though, Tyson, Dane Key, the Kentucky transfer, is supposed to be starting. Like, he is productive last year. He's had 700 yards, 2 touchdowns. Can he be the number one option for them? He needs to be. So that's something
Hunter from California, they got I think it's Nizia Hunter. They pulled from Cal. So that should help. I mean, they need as much receiving help as they can get. They got to help this kid out, man.
For sure. What is going to help him out, Tyson? 63rd toughest schedule in the country, according to Phil Steele. That is a gift. I mean, you start in Kansas City against Cincinnati, which that's an interesting game. But you host Akron, host Houston Christian, host Michigan. If you can knock them off, you are in a big spot, or you're at least in a good spot for your schedule. After your bye, you're hosting Michigan State. They're coming off their bye, but that's your homecoming for Nebraska. At Maryland, at Minnesota, home Northwestern, home USC, who's off a bye, at UCLA, who's off a bye. So that's a little tricky stretch. Then you get a bye. You go at Penn State. You host Iowa on a Friday night game to close. I can see why it's 63rd, considered the 63rd toughest schedule, but I do think there are some tricky stretches in there too.
Yeah, if Nebraska looks like a Matt Rule bump team, then they're going to be fine. We're going to be looking at this in week 4 and being like, I think Nebraska can run the table.
Northwestern, David Braun is now in his 3rd season. Remember, he had that fantastic debut. I mean, I was on their win total under like 3.5. I was like, no way. And they won friggin' 9 games or 8 games. It was insane. They went 4-8 last year, 2-7 in conference. They get Preston Stone, who's coming in from SMU. I'm sure all the people who love Preston Stone will be let's see what you can do here. I mean, God, he couldn't do anything at SMU, lost his job. We'll figure out what happens this season. But Tyson, I just don't know. It's Northwestern football. At least with Fitzgerald, we kind of got an idea of what it was going to be. With Braun, it felt like that was happening in year 1. I think in year 2, it's going to be more of what we saw last year. Or I'm sorry, in year 3, it was going to be more of what we saw in year 2.
Yeah, probably. I mean, the flip side is like Stone broke his leg in 23 and maybe it bugged him in 24. He's got another year. They get another FCS transfer. Mark Gronowski's running mate from South Dakota State, Griffin Wild. Dude, this guy he doesn't look like an NFL receiver, but he's 6'2", 200 pounds, 71 catches, 1,100 yards last year. Big guy, and they're going to need to throw the ball because they're going to be behind quite a bit, I think, here. The defense was good 2 years ago, and it wasn't nearly as good last year. And that was not maybe solely responsible for the 4-game flip-flop, but it was a big part.
Yeah, and we've kind of alluded to this, and we just did in the SEC on a couple of these teams that were bad last year. You talked about the defense not being as good last year. Well, 57.7% of those tackles are coming back, which is 23rd in the country. Is that a good thing? I don't know. Maybe you would think. I mean, Braun he's supposed to be the defensive guy. Maybe we can get him right and more experience. That helps. But here's the biggest thing for me. While only 59.3% of their yards are back, which is actually 36, it's not terrible for them. 108 offensive line starts are back, which is 23rd. And I think that's big. If you can at least give yourself a shot at the line of scrimmage on offense, you can have Preston Stone maybe sling it around a little bit, find some of these wide receivers that are coming in, a few transfers and things like that. But they have the 23rd toughest schedule in the country, Tyson. And for a Northwestern team, that's not what you want to hear.
No, it's not. But we did finally get to the good part of the alphabet. We can start the show.
Yes, because let's start with Ohio State. 14-2 last year, 7-2 in conference, but they win the national championship. Ryan Day finally got the monkey off his back. 70-10. What a ridiculous number that he's provided since he's shown up here. It is insane. Speaking of Sayin, Julian Sayin is expected to be the quarterback, redshirt freshman, highly touted guy. Everybody's talking about, well, we see what he can do, and he's going to be great. We'll see. You got to see him play at this level. As you're going through your prep, and if you're coming off a championship, obviously we know Jeremiah Smith's back. Carnell Tate is going to take over the Emeka Ibuka role. Is it just the machine keeps on churning here in Columbus, Tyson?
Yeah, I think like people that are concerned that Brian Hartline's calling the plays now and like what that means, I don't expect much of a drop in offensive production. I think Sayin's going to be a good player. Like that's just kind of what it is. They're going to have guys that can run the ball. We know about Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, Ennis. They get the tight end Claire, I think, from Purdue is coming in here. We know we're going to get one of the best offensive lines in the country. They bring back 3 starters, and they get a couple more guys in the portal. We know the defense is going to be really good, and it doesn't matter who they lost because they just keep turning out guys that are awesome. It's just the same preview we do on Ohio State every season, except for this time we don't get to say they don't win when it matters. And now it's like, is the pressure off going to like unlock something here?
Well, they win when it matters unless it's against Michigan. I think that's the next thing that the Ohio State fans can complain about.
That's true.
Yeah, we won the national championship, but we couldn't beat Michigan. And people are bitching about Penn State for some reason. I'm like, guys, you just won the freaking championship. Like, if Penn State wins the championship, you will not hear me talk a single thing about Ohio State. I can promise you that.
Well, you got to complain about. I mean, we're Eagles fans, so there's not a ton of room.
That's true. That is true. And you kind of set that up well, Tyson. I'm just going to put some numbers on it because I have to. 26.3% of the offensive yards are back, which is 90th. 45.6% of the tackles are back, which is 65th. 85 offensive line starts are back, which is 45th. Does that scare you at all? Of course not. These guys recruit like top 5 guys, top 3, top 2 guys. Only 6 offensive starters returning, 3 defensive starters. Does not matter. Now, I will say they might be talented, but they don't have the experience, right? Because we know like, the guys wanted to come back last year and win the national championship. While that's great, it also stunts a little bit of the growth that you have for some of those younger guys. So that as you're stepping into your sophomore, junior years, you don't have that game experience like you would have had otherwise. But that's just being nitpicky and me pointing stuff out with Ohio State. That's freaking Ohio State.
And they have a 2013 or 2014 NFL front office's wet dream for a pair of coordinators. They got Chip Kelly and Matt Patricia. It's crazy. It's funny.
Chip Kelly's gone now. Yes.
Excuse me. But Matt Patricia is indeed in Columbus, and that's going to smash probably. And we're all going to have to sit here like, dude, he's got the best players.
I know, because you lose Jim Knowles, and we'll talk about him here shortly. But you lose Jim Knowles, who's widely considered the best defensive coordinator, and you just bring an NFL guy in. We just saw what they did last year with an NFL guy, and it's just, of course, it's just insane. Let's get into Oregon. I said Dante Moore couldn't beat out. If you're listening to our Heisman stuff, I confused him with Malachi Nelson because I said Dante Moore couldn't beat out at Boise State, and he couldn't take. No, I apologize to Dante Moore. That's my bad, but. Left UCLA when Chip Kelly was there, been sitting back at Oregon, and there's just a lot of questions I have with him. Now, who I don't have questions with is Dan Lanning. He's in his 4th season as head coach here at Oregon. He's got a 35-6 record. They went 13-1 last year in their inaugural year in the Big Ten, went 9-0 in conference, won it, and it's just been aces for Lanning since he's taken over as head coach of Oregon. They continue to recruit well. They got a ton coming back. They hit the transfer portal hard, and the machine looks like it's going to keep rolling for Oregon.
Yeah, I mean, likely. And like Mekhi Hughes comes in to run the football, and we've seen Oregon run the football at a crazy rate under Dan Lanning. But it's the same thing kind of with the top 3 teams in the conference. It's like, which one of these teams is going to have the best new faces on defense? Because that's probably who's going to end up winning the conference. Oregon goes out, hits the portal, gets a ton of guys. Dan Lanning has been recruiting his ass off for the last 5 years out here, and the fruit is really, it's time to reap what he's sown, and I think the goal is national championship.
You got to. But you know what's going to be a big thorn in that, Tyson? Evan Stewart's injury. It tears his ACL, I believe. It's going to be out for the season. That is monstrous for that receiving core. So, one, I think if Dylan Gabriel was coming back, you could survive that just because he was so experienced and kind of new. And he's worked with a ton of talent when he was at UCF. And even Oklahoma had some guys, but I mean, Oregon was operating on a different level. Dante Moore is going to take over, and you don't have who's supposed to be your number one guy. You're going to be relying on DeCorian Moore, who could be awesome. Like he could be the Jeremiah Smith.
He looks pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. But how many of those guys, that's the one thing that Tyson and I are always hate. It's like, this guy's a generational guy. Then 2 years later, it's like, this guy's no, that's not generational. So everybody's talking about, Jeremiah Smith's generational. DeCorian Moore's you can't have 2 back-to-back generational guys.
Why
so
not? We have 5 in the NFL.
I know. That's what drives me nuts. But, Malik Benson's going to be your starter, Tyson. God, that guy's was a flame out, just not great at Florida State. So I think there's more questions with the weapons that we've had at Oregon for a while.
They're going to score a ton of points. That's just what they do. I think that's I'm not crazy for thinking that. And you can go through the schedule here for Oregon too. I think you can't be that mad, I don't think, if you're a Ducks fan.
No, 19th toughest schedule according to Phil Steele. You open with Montana State. Shout out.
Tough one.
Next week you host Oklahoma State. Well, listen to our Big 12 preview, what we think of them. At Northwestern, host Oregon State, there's just a ton of questions going on with that program. At Penn State for a whiteout game. Penn State's off a bye. That is a huge game. Then you get a bye. You host Indiana, who's off a bye. At Rutgers, host Wisconsin, bye. At Iowa, who's off a bye too. Host Minnesota, who's off a bye. Host USC, and then at Washington to close. This is it's not a cakewalk for Oregon by any stretch of the imagination.
No, but I think they could win 10 or 11 games. For sure.
And that's going to be the number they got to get to. It's just, can Dante Moore be the guy? I keep saying it's just the biggest question mark that we have for Oregon. Let's get into Penn State. 13-3 last year. They make the college football playoff for the first time under James Franklin. 8-1 in conference, went to the conference championship game. This is James Franklin's 12th season. He's 101-72 since he's taken over here at Penn State. Tyson, Drew Allers back. This is a guy that we are much more fond of than seems like the outside perspective.
Everyone else.
3,300 yards through the air, 67% completion percentage, 24 touchdowns, 8 picks. If we would have said that about a lot of these guys, we're like, oh my God, that's really good.
Right? What do we do? Shut up, everyone.
But here's the biggest thing. Both Nick Singleton and Katron Allen are back. Both went over 1,000 yards last year. Singleton scored 12 tuds. Katron Allen had 8. They're both 1,000-yard seasons away from being the all-time rushers in the history of the program. This is the best offensive line that's coming back. People might raise their eyebrow at that. They're just the deepest. They literally have a 2 deep that could start for virtually every Big Ten program. I don't know how they turned this offensive line around as well they did. Shout out Trout, the offensive line coach. Shout out whatever the resources are being put into that offensive line. Tyson, 6 years ago, we were saying they're one of the worst in the Big Ten, and now they're legitimately the best in the country. It's insane. They get 3 transfer wideouts because we know how bad that unit was last year. Trevor Pena from Syracuse, Devontae Ross from Troy, Kyron Hudson from USC. This is a reshaped weapons on the outside, and we're doing the same thing in the trenches and the same thing at running back, and that's what's theirs to be excited about.
No Luke Reynolds from you?
I don't know if he's going to start, Tyson. That's the crazy thing. I know. So Khalil Dinkins is very popular. Well, I think they're going to run 2 tight ends a lot of the time, but Khalil Dinkins is very popular inside the Penn State program because he does the dirty work and he's got great hands. Luke Reynolds is a little bit more of the pass catcher. Mm-hmm. So he's a little bit more the Jasicki type of guy compared to the Tyler Warren do-it-all. And Dinkins is a little bit more do-it-all type of Tyler Warren type of guy. So I don't know if Reynolds is going to start. Now I think he's going to get on the field a ton. I think he's going to be sick. But yeah, there's a real chance.
And we can talk about the offense as much as we want. If you have concerns about Drew Aller, you have concerns about him as an NFL quarterback and not as a guy in college football that can win 13 games, because he just did. And he didn't play well in some of them, and he hasn't won the high leverage spots. The playoffs, that's great, but like the draw was pretty good for Penn State, right? I mean, you're getting these guys from Texas to go up in the cold. He's got to beat Ohio State. He's got to beat the teams at the top of this conference. But Brad, like, Jim Knowles is in Happy Valley. Like, this is a crazy thing.
It's crazy. Wins the championship at Ohio State. There's some infighting going on there internally. He says thanks with no thanks. He's a Philly guy. He wants to come back home. He starts moving closer to his old stomping grounds of Philadelphia, and James Franklin gets it done. And it's insane, because this is not I texted you. I was like, oh my God, Penn State just hired Jim Knowles. And you're like, what? Like, it was shocking. Like, it shocked the college football world, because Penn State hasn't been able to compete money-wise and financial-wise with the upper echelon type of programs. And they got the most coveted defensive coordinator in the country, which was a shock. Everybody says this is going to take 3 years, right? Like, that's the whole thing. I don't think that's going to be the case for Penn State. They have a foundation in place. They have a bunch of athletes who can play the system. I think this is going to be a year-one bump. The question mark I have, Tyson, you lose Chop Robinson 2 years ago. You lose Abdul Carter last year. Yes, denied Dennis Sutton comes back, which is huge, but there is some question marks behind him on the edge. And if Zane Durant gets hurt on the interior, that could be a problem. But the secondary's sick. Like, AJ Harris could be the first round DB taken ever by Penn State in the NFL first round draft. So there's some good guys, man. It's just the defense. Knowles going to have to scheme it up.
And you get Campbell, play linebacker from North Carolina. I think that's good too. Everyone's going to say it's now or never, because that's how we talk about James Franklin. It's really not. But like, Brad's going to feel that way by week 10 for sure.
Oh, dude, I'm feeling it right now. Like, this, you got to win. You got to win. You got to win the national championship with this team, dude. Like, this is insane. So, 37th toughest schedule. They, open with Nevada, FIU, Villanova at home. Bye. You host Oregon for the whiteout. You go out to UCLA, which is a little scary, but then you come back home, host Northwestern, at Iowa, bye week, at Ohio State. That's the big one. So that's both off a bye there. Can you go and win that game? You come back home and you host Indiana, at Michigan State, who's off a bye, which freaking stinks, because the weirdest things happen. There'll probably be like a lightning strike or something, and Penn State has to play with 7 guys because of it, or some weird thing. This weird stuff happens at East Lansing whenever Penn State goes there. And you come back, host Nebraska, who's off a bye, and at Rutgers. If Penn State's as good as we think they are, this should not be a problem, but there is a chance, and maybe that's just the scared Penn State fan in me, that there is going to be some landmines in this schedule.
I mean, they got to make the playoff. With that schedule, they just have to.
They have to do it. All right. Let's get into Purdue. Another new regime. So Barry Odom takes over for the fired Ryan Walters. He's coming from UNLV. They went 1-11 last year, 0-9 in conference, did Purdue. Ryan Brown's going to be the quarterback. Devin Maccabee's back at running back. But Tyson, there's not a whole lot. 18.8% of the offensive yards are back, which is 109th. 8.8% of the tackles are back, which is 134th. And 48 offensive line starts are back, which is 89th. Plus, you get the 13th toughest schedule for Phil Steele. This is a nightmare for Barry Odom.
They've returned 0 starters on defense, and their top 14 tackle guys are gone. Barry Odom's better. He can coach that side of the ball. But they left 40 points a game, and now you're not bringing back anybody. You got to – I mean, maybe it's fine. Maybe it's better. Like, this defense was so bad, you just replace all of them and then hope to pick up the pieces. And then, the Brown thing is funny because he transferred to North Carolina, and then he came back to Purdue. It's getting so hard to keep track of this thing. They're probably the worst team in the Big Ten.
I think so too. I mean, forget zero rebuild or year 0.
I think
this is 0-2. You're gonna have a long rebuild here.
You think it gets 3 years to get to year 0? So when they win 3 games in 3 years, we're gonna be okay?
I think so.
Do you think that's the leash? I think if they suck 3 years in a row, I mean, Walters was 1-11. They were like, get out of here.
Yeah, but I don't know. There was some stuff that it just wasn't a great fit. It just was not a great fit there. So I don't know. Rutgers, Tyson, Greg Schiano. This is sixth season since he's come back. 26-34, which I think they would take in a heartbeat. They went 7-6 last year, 4-5 in conference. That was a disappointment based on the schedule they got. They avoided literally every single good team in the Big Ten for like the first time in their existence. And injuries derailed them, which sucked. Like, I feel bad for Rutgers because now the Big Ten did not do them any favors with the scheduling this year. But there's the good news. You at least get Ethan Kaliakmanis back, so you get some quarterback security. 2,600 yards, 54% completion percentage. He's never going to be a high percentage guy, but he's big play, boomer bust. 18 touchdowns, 7 picks. So that's what you have there. Where are you at on this Rutgers era, year two Rutgers 2.0 of Schiano here?
I mean, I love watching him play. It just is like anytime that you have to, like, your conference schedule ends up Ohio State, Penn State, Oregon, it's tough. Like, it's just, you can almost, it's just those three you can probably wipe away right now. The defense was like the epitome of bend it up but don't break. It was like every third play felt like an automatic first down. They weren't getting anybody off the field, but then people couldn't score when they played Rutgers either. Like, they were middle of the road for the Big Ten, but their whole defense was injured. Monangai is gone, and I think people are going to read into that quite a bit, but Raymond is good. Then they get CJ Campbell from FAU. I think they're going to be able to run the ball again. It's just this schedule we're back to classic Rutgers, where it's just like, who did they piss off?
I know. It's insane. And I'm agreeing with you there. Monangai, people are going to highlight, but 67.8% of their yards are back on offense, which is 18th in the country. And you talk about the run game, 106 offensive line starts back, 25th in the country. That's huge for Rutgers. If they can just run the ball, let's hope the defense plays a part in this. 44% of their tackles are back, 69th in the country. That's huge for them. I'm with you. But the schedule, 16th toughest according to Phil Steele. They did not miss anybody you highlighted. At Washington, they got to go to too. Yeah. Then come back and play Oregon. Then they go at Purdue, at Illinois. Not like those are tough games, but you get on the road for that. Then you finish at Ohio State, home Penn State. Holy smokes.
Yeah, not fair.
Not fair at all. UCLA, Deshaun Foster, year 2. They went 5-7 last year, 3-6 in conference. I think they shocked a lot of people with how they finished. It felt like Deshaun Foster was going to lose everything or lose the locker room, but like they clearly liked him there. They fought for him. They made a quarterback change and it worked. Well, now they're doing it again. They got Joey Aguilar out of the portal. They're like, wait, Nico Iamaleava is available. Let's go get him. And they got him.
I mean, they were 1-5, and then they beat Nebraska and Iowa, and it went from that Deshaun Foster thing at media day is really funny when they were 1-5 to that Deshaun Foster thing at media day is awesome when they win 4 of the last 6.
And you did put the I'm a leave it thing in my head.
I know.
Hey, he left. Tyson, it's funny because his stats, I'm going to read them off here. 2,600 yards, 64% completion percentage, 5 touchdowns, 5 picks. Like, on the surface, those are good numbers. But there was a lot missing. 5 interceptions.
How many touchdowns?
19.
Okay. We're going to have to run that back. You just broke my brain.
Can Nico thrive at UCLA? I think that's what everybody's wondering here. Like, Tennessee felt like the highest bidder situation there. You would think it'd be a little bit better with Heupel. I don't know if it's going to be a better situation from a schematic standpoint coming to UCLA, Tyson, but maybe just the fit's a little better.
Yeah, probably. Schlesinger on the defense goes to the NFL, and that's tough because this defense turned it around all the way. And he was like, he goes 33rd to the Browns. He was up there. He might have been the first pick of the second round, and it's tough to lose a guy like that. They got guys on defense, but I don't know what we're getting. You said maybe a highest bidder situation. It felt like Nico might have found himself in an only bidder situation.
Well, he bid himself out of there, that's for sure. Or his dad did. I don't know how it works. We had a whole reaction on that. If you guys are curious, it's in the archives. Go check it out if you want to hear our reaction. But they're going to run into some trouble here. UCLA is 18.9% of their offensive yards back, which is 107th. Now you bring Nico in, which helps. So we'll see. But 14.2% of their tackles are back, Tyson. It's not just Schlesinger who left. I mean, a ton. 128th in the country in that metric. 91 offensive line starters, which is offensive starts, which is 39th. So at least that's a positive. But the 8th toughest schedule. I mean, man, if you're Deshaun Foster, you're like, guys, what is happening here?
I think he's safe no matter what happens. Dude, the excitement around UCLA football when they were the ones to grab Nico, that's more reporting than has been done on them in years.
I'm with you. I don't think he's got to make a bowl game. I don't think they will. I mean, this is a tough schedule. I mean, you open your year hosting Utah. I mean, I got them winning the Big 12, and I have UCLA doing anything at UNLV. Now that's a good game for UCLA to get on track. You host New Mexico, 2 programs who lost their head coaches and who are rebuilding. So not bad there. You get a bye. You go to Northwestern, who's off a bye, not expecting anything on that front. You host Penn State, at Michigan State, host Maryland, at Indiana. Now, that's that seesaw, right? If you're the West Coast team, at least you only have to go to the Midwest on some of your road games, so that helps. Then you get a bye, host Nebraska, at Ohio State, host Washington, at USC. That final stretch is actually pretty favorable for UCLA.
It'll be interesting. That'll be, maybe that is make or break bowl season.
USC. Whoa. What a offseason for them on the recruiting trail. What an offseason for the boosters. I don't know if somebody was getting stock tips over there. What the hell is going on? Because everybody's got money. Everyone won the lottery in California. Apparently, at least has a USC connection. I mean, my goodness, they're throwing cash around. This is Lincoln Riley's 4th season. They went 7-6 last year, 4-5 in conference. He is now 26-14 since taking this job. He's rolling with Jaden Maeva, who threw for 1,200 yards, 60% completions last year, 11 touchdowns, 6 picks in 7 games and 4 starts. He's hitching his wagon to this, Tyson. Is this going to work at least in some semblance of success here for USC?
Did they not look or behave like a completely different football team when he was playing?
They did.
Yeah, I think that's reason enough to hit your way. Lincoln Riley, probably rightfully so, definitely has the ego of just like, I can coach quarterback. Like I've coached a lot of these guys. I can get this stuff out of this kid. Like that Notre Dame game was special, and there's things that he did yesterday when he played, or last year when he played, that were awesome. Like Lemon and Lane. You get the running back, like you said. There's a ton of different guys that are going to make his job easier. But we made so much fun of Alex Grinch in this defense for 2 years, and then D'Anton Lynn comes in here, and it's like a 10-point per game improvement. And there's reason to think that with some of these guys that they got, they can at least maintain that or get better. And last year what did they lose? 6 games by 5 games by less than 7 points, or 7 or less points. That's positive regression. Seems like it could be on the way for the Trojans.
I'm with you there. Now, 32.5% of their offensive yards are back, which is 75th in the country.
Zach Branch is at Georgia.
Right. 35.5% of their tackles are back, which is 88th in the country. 75 offensive line starts are back, which is 59th in the country. It doesn't sound great, Tyson, but they attacked the transfer portal. They got some different guys in. Some of their younger guys are a little bit older. And it's now or never, though, for USC. I think that's the situation now. Lincoln Riley, they were incredibly successful on the recruiting trail. So I think maybe that was the one that bought him a little bit more time. But I think you got to see some semblance of success here on the field.
He's 15-11 in his last 2 years. That's 20th what they're paying for.
No, exactly. 20th toughest schedule too. So I think that helps USC. I do think you're right with the 1-score games that some improvement could be coming there. Washington. This is year 2 of Jed Fish. There were 6-7 last year in the first year in the Big Ten, 4-5 in conference. This is DeMond Williams' show, and I think a lot of people were surprised last year when Fish basically went to him and benched Will Rogers, and the offense looked better. I mean, Will Rogers is the guy that tore up the SEC. I don't know what happened. He just couldn't either fit with the system for Jed Fish or just didn't quite work. But this is DeMond Williams' show, man.
Yeah, and I think that's the right move here. Last year was the whole staff left. Everybody that you had become familiar with watching Washington play essentially was gone, and they still won 6 games. And like they did it in a way that maybe wasn't consistent with what we thought we were going to get from a Jed Fish team in UW. But this year you're concerned about the offensive line for sure. But Jonah Coleman is really good. I think that helps. Williams, I think, can be really good. Denzel Boston can be a really good player. And that defense, dude, like all the stuff people were talking, Washington's not going to be able to play defense in the Big Ten. They were middle of the pack or better. Especially in scoring defense, it's like 24 points a game. That's good enough. And I think that year 2, Jed Fish can like actually sink his hooks into this thing and be like, I can start to mold this into my own. And I think that's a great thing for Washington.
Now, Steve Belichick left. He's at North Carolina. They bring in Ryan Walter, the fired guy from Purdue. So that's pretty notable. I mean, 28.9% of their tackles are back, 110th in the country. But Jed Fish, we know, is all about offense. Now, the defense has to be up to snuff, but apparently Washington's going to be a lot more aggressive. I mean, that's just the way of Walter compared to how Belichick operated. 46.6% of the offensive yards are back, which is 57th in the country. You mentioned the concerns about offensive line. Rightfully so. 58 offensive line starts, 75th in the country. So we could see some issues there, especially with some of the fronts that they're going to be facing in the Big Ten. But Tyson, the 53rd toughest schedule, according to Phil Steele. Oh, they got to be loving this. They open with Colorado State and UC Davis, bye, at Washington State. Then you host Ohio State, who's off a bye, at Maryland, who's off a bye, host Rutgers off a bye. So that's not necessarily great, but then you're at Michigan, then you host Illinois off a bye. So maybe that stretch is a little bit tougher than I think Phil Steele would imagine. But then you're home. And then you get a bye. Then you're at Wisconsin, who's also off a bye, just like you. Host Purdue, at UCLA, host Oregon to close. I do think that's tougher than the 53rd schedule. Now, they aren't facing a murderer's row by any means. But if DeMond Williams is really good, I think a bowl game should be in play here.
Yeah, and I think, going UC Davis and Washington State before the Ohio State game where you're probably going to lose, and then you get Maryland and Rutgers before the Michigan game that you're probably going to lose. And then, you get Wisconsin, who we're about to talk about, Purdue and UCLA before the Oregon game that you're probably going to lose. But there are spots here for Washington to rack up some wins.
Let's close here with Wisconsin. 5-7 last season, 3-6 in conference. We are now in the 3rd season of the Luke Fickell era, 13-13 overall. This has not been what anybody expected since he came over from Cincinnati. Before we dive into this, what's your read on this entire situation here?
Wisconsin hasn't had a losing season before last year since I was 5. That didn't feel like weird to you?
Yeah, I did. I didn't know it was that long. One, they got the benefit of playing in the Western side, the Western side of the division, but still, that is crazy.
Yeah, and the offense has to be way better. Like Grimes has to come in here and flip this thing on its head.
Now, Billy Edwards is the quarterback, transferring from Maryland. 15 touchdowns, 9 picks, 65% completion percentage, under 3,000 yards. I just don't know if he can be the guy to do that, and it's not like they have a ton of weapons on the outside that you can point to and be like, they're going to help him out. They're going to help him out. So I think could be another tough year in Madison. Wisconsin
feels like if Iowa was a little bit worse at defense.
Yeah, I'm with you on that front. And I just don't know, man. If Luke Fickell doesn't have success this year, is there a chance he's done after this season, or do you think he's going to get another year?
I don't know, because on the one hand, if after 4 years he's 18-20, that probably doesn't fly at Camp Randall. But on the other hand, it's like this guy won 55 games at Cincinnati. Like he never lost, and so 4 years is plenty of time to be able to evaluate somebody, and that wouldn't be great if he has more losses than wins. You're shocked. Like the conversation 4 years ago was like elation that this guy is going to be coaching Wisconsin.
I'm with you, and I don't know if he's Tyson. I think that I'm leaning towards him not getting to that point because 31.6% of their offensive yards are back, which is 77th in the country. 51.7% of their tackles back, which is 47th. The saving grace here is 111 offensive line starts are returning, which is 19th in the country. So can you have success? Can you give Billy Edwards time? Can you have a run game? We'll see. Here's the thing. Phil Steele believes they have the toughest. Nobody else has a harder schedule in the country than Wisconsin, and what could be a make-or-break year for Luke Fickell. My goodness.
They had the 17th ranked rush defense in the Big Ten last year. How many teams are in the Big Ten, Brad?
18.
How many of those teams should be worse than Wisconsin? It's crazy.
Let me just go through this because I want to see if you guys agree. Host Miami, Ohio on Thursday to open. host Middle Tennessee. All right, that's not terrible. At Alabama, host Maryland, then you get a bye, but then you're at Michigan, who's also off a bye. You host Iowa, who's off a bye. You host Ohio State. Then you go to Oregon. Then you get a bye, and you host Washington, but they're off a bye. Then you got to turn around and go to Indiana. Then you host Illinois. Then you close at Minnesota. This schedule is brutal.
No, yeah, there's only a couple coin flip games in there, and that's tough.
That is tough. Okay, Tyson, let's get into some of our picks at the end here. Let's get into Money Making.
It's Money Making Time.
Now, we have two each that we're rolling with. My first one is going to be Nebraska over 7.5 minus 140 here on FanDuel. I'm a believer in Matt Rule. I'm a believer in Dylan Raiola. I'm a believer in Dana Holgorsen as the offensive coordinator. I think this is going to be a much improved unit. They had bad luck last year. If we just get average special teams, I think Nebraska would have won a ton more games last year. I think we're going to get that this year. Give me over 7.5.
I'm a believer in the Pac-12, and I'm going over Washington 7.5 to start here, plus 112. I believe in Damon Williams. I believe in Jed Fish, and I believe in UW, baby. They're going to show up. I'm all the way back in.
Well, Tyson, I was shocked to hear you're on the same play as me because I thought I was going to piss you off with this one. But I'm going over 7.5 wins on USC. It just feels like at some point there's going to be a bounce back boom spot, and feels like everything's moving in the right direction here for Lincoln Riley and for the boys of Troy. Fourth season there, we need a result. Maeva could be awesome. I'm banking on Lincoln Riley's offensive genius to come through. They figured out the Big Ten. They figured out the travel thing a little bit. So give me over 7.5 minus 158 for USC.
Yeah, and it's Missouri State who is – I mean, that game was scheduled when Missouri State hadn't even thought of becoming a Division I football program. Georgia Southern, Purdue, Michigan State, Illinois, and then it's hard with Michigan and Notre Dame, but then you get Nebraska, Northwestern, Iowa, then you got to go to Oregon. And like, if this thing comes down to USC, UCLA, I feel good. Like, and I don't think it's going to.
I'm with you there. So 2 picks for us here. Now, Tyson, I'm just going to do the same disclaimer because some of this stuff's going to move. Again, we are recording way in advance because I'm on vacation, so sorry about that, guys. But I would be comfortable up to minus 170 in the Nebraska win total over because I do think they're going to win 8 games. But anything above 170, which to me is a half a win, as how the odds makers look at it, or how a handicapper I respect, that's how he views it. So I'm taking that. I think they're going to win 8 games. I'd go up to minus 170. That's it. If it's 8.5, no. Same with USC, up to minus 170. That's the most juice I'd be willing to lay. If it goes up to 8.5, no.
I'm with you on the USC, and Washington is not financial advice. I'm just doing
that's a heart play, man. He loves Washington. That's his second team. I can feel it. Yes. But Tyson, when I'm on vacation, I'm going to throw a little change around still, and we got baseball still kicking and all that good stuff. I know people are probably betting some home run lottos, yada yada. Where can they find the rest of our picks?
In the Discord app. The group name, as I said, what I said, link is in the bio. Tons of different channels in there. Brad's throwing home run parlays. He's getting them home now. My girlfriend hits a $5 UFC bet. I need her, to get in here. She's cashing plus 300,000 odds. I don't know what's going on, but I will get Emma in, and then the rest of you can just kind of tail those picks.
And in the meantime, guys, like, subscribe, and share the show. If you're watching all the way to the end, smash the like button. If you're listening to podcast form, you haven't already, 5-star review. It does help us out a ton. Ask us a question if you want in the comments or in the review, whatever the case may be. But subscribe because we are getting ready for football season. You may not think it's right around the corner, but it is. We got a ton of content coming your way, so you don't want to miss a single thing that we do. Share it with a friend. Share it with an enemy. You guys know the drill. We'll be back talking week 0 in terms of college football here upcoming. Maybe some more Heisman stuff at the end. But we'll talk to you guys when we talk to you. Till then, peace.